Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is currently bouncing from this important support, while in the short term, this bullish divergence is playing out for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, which I'll talk about later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just giving you a really quick update here on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and right now, as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is technically still within the much larger bullish trend that we've seen since the beginning of this year, and that is simply because the price of Bitcoin is technically still forming significant higher lows and higher highs here on the much larger timeframes. And on top of that, if you're looking at the super trend indicator on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, of course, as of right now, this is still sitting in the green, which I've been saying almost every day since the beginning of this year, indicating a larger multi-month long bullish trend. But the point of invalidation for this super trend indicator, which is basically the point where this indicator would reverse from green back to red, and that point of invalidation is sitting at around $25,000 per Bitcoin. So basically, we would need to see a confirmed break below 25k with at least a 4-day candle close, but ideally weekly candle closes below 25k in order to confirm a trend reversal signal in this indicator on this time frame. And also, of course, if we confirm a break below 25k, that would also form a lower low. So essentially, a confirmed break well below 25k would be a confirmation signal confirming a trend reversal on the larger time frames, but at least as of right now, obviously we have not yet seen that. So what this means is that as of right now, obviously we are trending bearish in the shorter term. If you're looking at the daily chart or smaller time frames, for example, we can clearly see more of a short-term bearish trend over the last 1 month or so, caused by things like these bearish divergences on the 4-day chart and also on the daily chart. But of course, it is possible to experience a short-term bearish trend throughout a much larger bullish trend, just like how we can see short-term bullish trends within a much larger bearish trend. And so at least as of right now, that is basically the situation for now. But if you're zooming into the daily Bitcoin chart, once again, we technically still have an active bearish divergence on the daily chart, because as of right now, we have not yet seen a strong reversal in the RSI or the price action, forming higher lows and higher highs again. And on top of that, ideally, in order to invalidate this bearish divergence, we would need to see a breakout in the RSI above this descending line of resistance, which obviously, as of right now, has not yet happened. And so once again, as I've been saying since all the way back up here at around $30,000, just in the somewhat shorter term, technically we are trending more bearish than bullish. And if you've been watching my videos over the last 1 month or so, since all the way back up here, I've been comparing this price action to what we saw back here. Once again, a short-term bearish trend that is technically still within a much larger bullish trend unless that invalidation level breaks. And as for support and resistance on the daily chart, we still have this significant area of support sitting in between around 24.3k to 25.3k, which was support back here during around the middle of June, and also resistance back here during around the middle of February. And as for resistance on the daily chart, of course, we still have this significant area of resistance all the way up here, sitting at around 30 to 31,000 approximately. And as for the daily Bitcoin price oscillators, right now, the daily Bitcoin MACD is technically still showing some bearish momentum on the daily chart. But with that being said, as of right now, this is showing less and less bearish momentum and is actually moving towards a possible bullish cross, perhaps coming in a few days from now, if this short-term price action continues over the next few days. And as for the daily Bitcoin RSI, once again, this is technically still trending to the downside with an active bearish divergence. And so overall, the shorter-term trend is still more bearish than bullish. But with that being said, over the last few days, as I've been saying, the RSI is extremely oversold on the daily time frame, and usually when the daily Bitcoin RSI is oversold, this basically means the price has gone too far to the downside too quickly, at least in the shorter term, and we need some time to reset the RSI out of those oversold territories. And typically that reset in the RSI from oversold territories back to the upside plays out in the form of either choppy sideways price action over the coming days or weeks, if not a slight bullish recovery over the coming days or weeks. And obviously, so far over the last last few days, for nearly the last 1 week, ever since this massive dump to the downside, obviously we have been seeing a lot of choppy sideways price action and now a slight bullish recovery just in the short term, which is what I've been talking about. But it is important to understand that this signal by itself is not necessarily enough to confirm that the short-term bearish trend is over and we're about to begin a new short-term bullish trend. And so for that, in order to become more confident that we're flipping more bullish again in the short term, we would need to ideally invalidate these bearish divergences on the larger timeframes, like the daily chart and also on the 4-day chart, by seeing breakouts and reversals in the RSI. But with that being said, if you're zooming into the much shorter term, looking at the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, as I mentioned in my last video on the channel, a new bullish divergence just recently confirmed, because obviously we have lower lows in the price of Bitcoin in the 4-hour candle closes, while also confirming higher lows in the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI, which is obviously a bullish divergence, meaning that we're due to see a reduced bearish momentum, so not as much bearish momentum in the imminent short term, which once again usually plays out in the form of either choppy sideways price action, if not a slight bullish relief, which is basically what we've seen since this new bullish divergence confirmed around a day ago. And generally speaking, these shorter term bullish divergences on the 4-hour chart, for example, play out over a few days, usually around 2 days or so, before they potentially begin to wear off. But basically, while the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI continues trending to the upside and remains above this important ascending line of support, this essentially means this short-term bullish divergence remains intact. And now, if you're new to all of this, you might be wondering, well, a bullish divergence should contradict a bearish divergence on the larger timeframes, but it is important to understand the difference between the different timeframes. So, for example, this smaller bullish divergence on the 4-hour chart, considering it is a smaller pattern, it usually plays out faster than the larger patterns on the larger timeframes, and also on the larger timeframes, these larger patterns are more significant than the smaller timeframes. And so essentially what this actually means is this short-term bullish divergence is resulting in a slight pause from the bearish trend that we're seeing here on the daily time frame. And so it's kind of like what we saw just here, where we saw a bit of a pause from the short-term bearish trend in the form of some choppy sideways price action and even some slight bullish price action, but ultimately we did remain within this short-term bearish trend. That was just a pause from the trend. So once again, that's basically the situation that we are in right now until we confirm other signals, which of course I'll talk about in future videos. And now if you're looking at the Bitcoin order books across multiple different exchanges, right now we have a lot of buy orders sitting at around 25.9k to 26k approximately. And we also have another group of buy orders at around $25,000 per Bitcoin. So basically those price levels should act as a bit of short-term support. And as for resistance, looking at the sell orders, we have a lot of sell orders at around 26.9k to 27k. So once again, those prices just in the short term should act as a bit of resistance. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart. And right now, the price of ETH is still hanging around this important area of support, sitting in between around 1650 to 1.7k. And obviously, I mentioned in my last video on the channel that the price of ETH is potentially attempting a break to the downside below 1650, considering we did actually see one daily candle close below 1650. But as I also said in my last video, that daily candle close was only slightly below 1650, so it was not a lot of confirmation. So basically, in order to become more confident that we're really breaking to the downside again, we need to see more confirmation, like for example, more candle closes, or even better, if we saw a retest of this support and saw a rejection confirming it as new resistance, then in that case, that could act as extra confirmation, confirming the break to the downside. But once again, as of right now, we do not have a lot of confirmation confirming that break to the downside. But with that being said, as of right now, we are still technically within a shorter term bearish trend, because we're still seeing things like lower highs and lower lows, at least in the slightly smaller time frames. And also any time where we're breaking below support and failing to break above resistance, of course, that is another sign of bearish price structure, once again, at least in the shorter term here. And as for the daily Ethereum price oscillators, right now now, the daily Ethereum MACD is still showing some bearish momentum, but with that being said, like Bitcoin, this is moving towards a possible bullish cross, which could come in a few days from now if this short-term price action continues. And as for the daily Ethereum RSI, once again, this is still technically in a downtrend, forming lower highs and lower lows, but obviously over the last few days, we have seen the daily Ethereum RSI enter well into oversold territories. And usually when we see the daily Ethereum RSI either enter into oversold territories or get very close to oversold territories, once again, this usually means the price of ETH has just had a quick dump or crash to the downside. So basically the price has gone too far to the downside too quickly, at least in the shorter term, and we need some time to reset the RSI back to the upside out of those oversold territories. And typically that plays out in the form of either choppy sideways price action over the coming days or weeks, if not a slight bullish relief over the coming days or weeks. And so once again, as of right now, this is acting as a bit of a pause from the short-term bearish trend, but this signal by itself does not necessarily cancel the short-term bearish trend, because as of right now, we still have to consider the possibility of a pause playing out from the bearish trend over the next 1 to 2 weeks, for example, which could help to reset the RSI back to the upside, which could actually give us more room to the downside later on. So once again, that's just a possibility that could play out over the coming weeks that we still need to consider. So this is not enough to fully confirm that the bearish trend is over and we're about to flip bullish again. And now if we do end up ultimately resuming the short-term bearish trend later on with a further confirmed break well below 1650, then in that case, looking at the Fibonacci retracement tool, we have the 50% retracement level acting as support, sitting at around 1510 to 1520. But if we actually see a confirmed break below around 1.5k, then in that case, we have the important golden pocket area of support sitting in between around 1360 to 1.4k. And now if you're zooming into the much shorter term, looking at the 4-hour ETH to US dollar chart, as I mentioned in my last video on the channel back down here, technically we have a new bullish divergence pattern on the 4-hour chart, because obviously the price of ETH has recently confirmed lower lows in the 4-hour candle closes in the price action, while also confirming higher lows in the 4-hour Ethereum RSI. And so once again, this is technically a short-term bullish divergence now currently active, while the RSI is trending to the upside, forming higher lows and higher highs, and more importantly, remaining above this ascending line of support. And so once again, this is just another short-term signal pointing towards a bit of a pause from this short-term bearish trend. And now if you want to know how to make a lot of money in crypto, no matter if the price is going to the upside, to the downside, or simply chopping around sideways in the shorter term, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make a lot of money no matter if the price is bullish or bearish, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.